I'm gonna play a video for you guys, but there's this really simple fact that people just don't get, and I don't understand why. It's so simple. A child can understand it. NASA has been taking fucking pictures of moons in the solar system, of planets in the solar system. They show us pictures, right? They're supposed to be pictures, like when we see Mars, they took a picture of Mars. They've been doing work in the solar system for over 40 years. They leave the orbit of the Earth, they travel in the solar system. Imagine, can they take a picture of the Earth? Why the fuck not? Okay, they've been doing work in the solar system for over 40 years. Based on that, there should be hundreds of pictures of Earth from space. I don't see how anybody could argue with that. That should be common sense. Now, people don't think about satellites, but there's supposed to be GPS satellites at a distance that are far enough away from the Earth that those could take pictures of the Earth. They could take an entire picture of the Earth from that distance. And then there's satellites in geosynchronous orbit so fucking far out, they can take pictures of the Earth. And because of all of these satellites, thousands and thousands of satellites that are old technology, there should be thousands of pictures of Earth from space by now. I could say that people still can't use their brains. Like, how is it that you can't get somebody to acknowledge that simple fact that that shit should exist? No, they can't do it. What happens if you search images of Earth from space? What the hell are you going to
Last
see?
week, scientists at NASA released this. The shot is
Wow,
compiled
that
from
is
data
so
from
Earth.
NASA's VIRS instrument, which orbits the Earth about every 100 minutes, taking measurements of light coming off the planet. That can be translated into ribbons of imagery.
What does the
like
backside
this,
look like? Just
and then
Russia?
into one of these. And this is just the latest in NASA's Earth from Space album, which may be one of the most
They have an Earth from Space album. Okay, they have an Earth from Space album. How many pictures are in that album? Thousands? Hundreds?
Human history.
This isn't even a picture of the fucking Earth.
It began with a shot taken by the Apollo 8 crew in 1968. And NASA scientist Gene Feldman says...
I'm always ranting about NASA because that's all people think about. But there are other space agencies from other countries that are supposed to be doing work. Like they send shit to the moon. There should be hundreds of pictures of Earth from space because of all of their work. Forget NASA. No, there's no pictures of Earth from space.
Earthrise. And I remember seeing that and the stark.
If you look into it, you're going to be left with basically Apollo images of Earth that are supposed to be real. Because NASA admits that they stitch images together from data from satellites. They have to make the pictures. They're not even real. They don't even try to tell you that they're pictures of Earth from space. They just say they're part of their Blue Marble series. And then they tell you they're from fucking satellites. They aren't actually pictures of Earth from space. That leaves you with basically Apollo images that are supposed to be actual pictures of Earth. How does that make any fucking sense?
I was just so fascinated by the
fuck your story. Get into the shit that's important.
Understand how did this happen? How does it work? Has kind of led me to do what I've done.
And for the last several decades, Feldman has done remote sensing.
Yeah, there's an old expression about sometimes you can't see the forest for the trees.
That is not a problem for a remote sensing scientist. Feldman studies the Earth from space. He says it's like taking vital signs of the planet, which means working with
scientific images that maybe show ocean color or sea surface temperature or land vegetation, or those are why we do what we do, to tell us about the planet from a clinical perspective. But the other images, the beautiful ones, they resonate with people because it's our home.
In 1972, we saw our home in a new way. Apollo 17 astronauts snapped this picture.
The most overused picture in NASA history.
Crystallized so much about the environmental movement at the time. It gave people the first look at their home planet.
Those are supposed to be real pictures.
Entity.
Those are supposed to be the only real pictures.
Carl Sagan made this Voyager image famous, his pale blue dot. Here he is on Science Friday talking about it.
I thought, that's us.
See, they can take that's supposed to be a real picture, the pale blue dot. So if they can take this picture, which is supposed to be real, of this little fucking dot, Why can't they take closer images of the Earth? This picture they're showing you is bullshit. So here they're actually lying to you. This is supposed to be real.
The need for us to care for one another and also to preserve the pale blue dot.
Carl Sagan was such a piece of shit loser. He knew NASA was a fraud. And now we got Neil deGrasse Tyson, Bill Nye the Science Guy, Michio Kaku, Brian Greene, Lawrence Krauss pretends he knows about Mars and what we can do on Mars. He covers for
In
NASA.
2002, Blue Marble 2.0. NASA's Rob Simon made this.
So if
And
you
it had
search
wide field
images,
too, for example.
I keep pressing pause on the wrong video. If you search images of Earth from space, you're gonna see that. And this is not a picture of Earth from space. They had to make it. I almost hit pause on the wrong fucking video again.
Background on the iPhone.
I didn't even know until I bought an iPhone and turned it on and kind of did a little happy dance.
Simon's job is...
It's primarily taking data and making pictures out of it.
That's what this is. A composite of data sets from several
A
different
composite. The
instruments
key
translated
word
into
with
a picture.
NASA is
us-
composite. There are no actual pictures of Earth from space. This is how you know they're doing absolutely nothing in the fucking solar system. They are complete fraud.
The really cool thing was the data set. Up until that point, there was no realistic color map of the globe anywhere.
So the land layer here comes from...
The moderate resolution imaging spectroradiometer aboard Terra.
And the tricky part here was the weather.
So we actually had to take clouds out.
They stashed the clouds for later, went onto the ocean. That came from an instrument that measures phytoplankton in the sea.
Where it was low, I colored it dark blue because they're low mostly in mid-oceans. And then where it's a little bit higher, it was like a little bit brighter green.
Then add the clouds back in.
There's a small problem with it because there's a very slight gap in between each orbit.
So some of those are painted on.
It is photoshopped, but it's has to be.
Then,
There was another layer to sort of simulate the atmosphere.
and then there's this little bright spot.
It's called the specular highlight. So it's the reflection of sunlight off of water.
Those are the pieces, but you can't just slap them all together.
It just didn't look realistic. It looks kind of flat, or the clouds are sort of too see-through. So I just hit Command Z a lot.
There's artistry to creating the world.
There's
Well, I imagine
artistry
it's-
in creating the world.
unfortunately,
Thanks, you dumb bitch.
never
Why
been
can't
to
she
space,
figure this shit
but
out?
I've looked at these images over and over again, trying to sort of get the essence of it.
Yep. Oh god, there's more. What else is there?
The only way that we can reach the
Fuck
most powerful
you and your
negative
fraud.
Results that I
Not
like,
only
but I
does
think
this
it's a little
show,
bit exaggerated.
did I not
so
pause
that
this? Not only does this show that NASA is not doing anything in the solar system, this shows you that those GPS satellites, they don't exist. Because if they fucking did, there would be thousands of pictures of Earth from space. So satellites in geosynchronous orbit, in the orbits of GPS, basically past the Earth orbit, you should be able to figure this out. They don't exist. You're crazy if you believe in this shit. And then guess what? You get to examine what's in low Earth orbit because the fraud doesn't end there. Start researching shit, look at evidence. Our world is controlled, and it's controlled by the Jesuit order. All of the space programs of all of the world powers are absolute fraud. Space travel is impossible.